The first time I heard it, I thought it was a child. It was during the rainy season of 2019, when I returned to my grandmother's compound in Enugu State after nearly a decade in Lagos. The old family house sat at the edge of the village, where cultivated farmland gave way to thick bush, the kind of dense, ancient forest that swallowed the moonlight whole. I had arrived late that evening, and Mama Noko had already retired to her room, leaving me to settle into the small guest quarters at the back of the compound. The zinc roof drummed with rain, and I was just drifting off when I heard it, a sharp, piercing cry that cut through the downpour like a blade. Whir! Whir! My eyes snapped open. It sounded exactly like an infant's wail, urgent, distressed, almost human. But what would a baby be doing out there in the bush at this hour? I sat up, straining to hear over the rain. The cry came again, closer this time, from somewhere beyond the back fence where the forest began. Every instinct told me something was wrong. A mother in distress, perhaps. A child wandered from home. I grabbed my phone for light and stepped onto the small veranda. The rain had softened to a drizzle, and the night air smelled of wet earth and decaying leaves. The cry pierced the darkness again, plaintive, almost beckoning. Hello. I called out, feeling foolish even as I did. Is someone there? Silence. Then, rustling in the undergrowth. I should have gone back inside. Instead, I found myself walking toward the fence, my phone's flashlight beam cutting weak paths through the darkness. The crying had stopped, but I could hear movement now, small, deliberate sounds of something moving through the bush. Nwam, what are you doing? I nearly jumped out of my skin. Mama Noku stood at the back door of the main house, wrapped in her faded wrapper, her face creased with worry. Mama, there's a baby crying in the bush, I said, pointing toward the forest. We need to come inside. Now. Her voice had a finality I hadn't heard since childhood. Back in her sitting room, she made me sit while she prepared hot tea with condensed milk, the way she always did when something serious needed discussing. That was no baby, she said finally, settling into her chair. That was a bush baby. We call them NWA Oko here, the spirit child of the forest. I wanted to laugh, to remind her that I was a university graduate, a Lagos professional, someone who didn't believe in such things. But the seriousness in her weathered face stopped me. They sound like human babies, she continued. That's how they trick people. The old ones say they're the souls of children who died before their time, trapped between worlds. The new people, the ones who read books, they say it's just an animal. A small monkey thing with big eyes. A galago, I murmured, remembering from some long ago biology class. They are primates. Harmless. Harmless. Mama Noku raised an eyebrow. Tell that to Okofor's son who followed the crying into the bush 5 years ago. They found him 3 days later, sitting by the stream, couldn't remember his own name for 2 weeks. Or Adis from the next compound, she picked one up, thought it was cute. That night, the crying started in her bedroom. Every night for months until they had to bring a dibia to cleanse the house. I sipped my tea, caught between skepticism and the primal unease that had gripped me at the fence. Over the next few days, I heard the cries often, always at night, always from the bush. I asked around the village, and everyone had a story. The old men at the palm wine bar spoke of bush babies as omens, harbingers of change. The young mothers warned their children never to approach the crying sounds. The market women sold charms to ward them off. But Okeke, the retired science teacher, invited me to his house and showed me his old textbooks. There they were, galagoids demidorf, small nocturnal primates with enormous eyes and infant-like distress calls they used for communication. Nothing supernatural. Just evolution's trick, a survival mechanism that happened to tap into the deepest human instinct to respond to a crying child. People fear what they don't understand, Okeke said, adjusting his glasses. But fear keeps them safe too. How many children have avoided the dangerous bush at night because of bush baby stories? How many people have stayed close to home when they should? On my last night in the village, I sat on the veranda long after dark, waiting. The cry came right on schedule, and this time I was ready with my phone camera. I zoomed in toward the sound, and for just a moment, the light caught something, two enormous reflective eyes, a tiny gray body clinging to a branch, and a mouth open in that heartbreaking wail. I watched it for several minutes, this small creature, this NWA Oko here, just trying to communicate with its kind in the only way it knew how. Then I turned off my light and went inside, leaving it to its ancient forest conversations. The next morning, as I packed to return to Lagos, Mama Noku pressed something into my palm, a small cloth pouch that smelled of herbs and smoke. "I know you don't believe," she said softly. "And maybe you're right. Maybe it's just small animals making noise. But belief isn't just about what's real, Noam. Sometimes it's about respect. Respect for the bush, for the old ways, for the line between our world and theirs, however we choose to draw it." I kept the charm. Not because I feared the bush baby's supernatural powers, but because she was right. In trying to explain away the mystery with science, I had almost missed the deeper truth, that some boundaries exist not because they are real, but because they are necessary. The bush baby's cry was a reminder that not everything should be approached, not everything should be touched, not everything should be dragged from the shadows into the light of understanding. Sometimes, the mystery itself is the message. And sometimes, when I'm alone in my Lagos apartment and hear a strange sound in the night, I still think of those enormous eyes in the darkness, and I remember that the world is larger and stranger than any explanation can hold. The bush babies are still crying in Enugu. And somewhere between superstition and science, between fear and understanding, the truth of what they are, or what they represent, remains beautifully, terrifyingly unclear.